Standing alone in California's barren Mojave Desert is a towering 7-story boulder called Giant Rock. It is here that George Van Tassel's strange journey began in the 1940s, just 3 miles from where he would eventually build the Integratron.
Giant Rock is a 25,000-ton boulder that takes up 5,800 square feet and is, until recently, the largest freestanding boulder in the world.
This massive boulder has long been held sacred by local Native American tribes, who believe it to be a site of great power.
Spiritual vortexes like Giant Rock are known to be places where people can have extraordinary spiritual experiences, healing experiences, deep states of meditation. And what we find out at Giant Rock is that the local Native American Indian tribes, the Serrano and the Chemehuevi, would do their ceremonies at Giant Rock, but only the chief was allowed to get close to Giant Rock.
In November of 2019, ancient astronaut theorist David Childress traveled to the site of Giant Rock to meet with local historian Barbara Harris and learn more about the inception of the Integratron.
Hello, Barbara.
Hi, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me here. So, please tell me the story of Giant Rock.
Well, they say it is millions of years old. And basically, this whole area here is made up of granite. And many, many years ago, there's a volcanic eruption. And of course, this is the product of that volcanic eruption.
What is the early story of Giant Rock then with Native Americans?
Well, this ground was considered very sacred by the Native Americans, and they would come here and use it seasonally. But they considered it so sacred that only the shamans and the chiefs were allowed to stay here at the rock. At the turn of the 19th century, the homesteading and the white man started to come in.
And that has to do with this early prospector who lived under the rock.
Frank Kreitzer. And he was responsible for building the roads to Giant Rock.
In 1930, George Van Tassel had a chance encounter with prospector Frank Kreitzer at his uncle's auto repair shop in Santa Monica, which led to him investing in Kreitzer's mining operations in the Mojave Desert. Kreitzer was known in the area for his eccentric behavior, which included using mining dynamite to blow a hole in the bottom of Giant Rock, one big enough to live in.
He lived under this rock.
Yes, he was actually a guy who was looking for people to come and visit him under his rock. However, Frank, he also had a dark side to him. So in July of 1942, the US government had the old man's draft. And it required people between the ages of 18 and 64 to register for the draft.
And so he got caught up in that.
Yeah,
didn't
he was
Okay.
54, and the local sheriffs came out here, who happened to be friends with him, and offered to take him into the local town to register for the draft. He walked into a back room and came out wearing a pair of binoculars that had wires attached. And he basically said, "Leave me alone or we're all gonna go to hell together." And he took the 2 wires, put them together, and
Frank Kreitzer's bizarre and violent action shocked the local community. Many questioned if he may have been influenced by the energy of Giant Rock itself, which the local Native American tribes had warned was only meant for sacred purposes. And according to geologists, Giant Rock does, in fact, produce energy. The interior of the rock is white because it is primarily composed of quartz, a mineral that generates an electrical charge when under stress, as it would be inside a massively heavy rock. Giant Rock is also believed to be located on top of a natural earth energy line, also known as a ley line.
George Van Tassel said the Integratron needed to be in a special place full of energy. We have a gold mine right nearby. This area has ley lines and aquifers. There's actually a mountain of quartz right here. And you can feel the energy when you're here.
On the northwest coast of France, just south of Brittany, lies one of the most important prehistoric sites in Europe. At the seaside village of Karnak, over 3,000 megalithic stones are placed in rows over 2 miles long. The Karnak stones were hewn from local rock formations and erected between 4,500 to 2,500 BC, at the end of the Stone Age. They are the largest collection of standing stones in the world.
Archaeologists are baffled by the many megaliths at Karnak here. It's clearly a massive construction project with blocks of granite weighing 50 to 100 to even up to 350 tons.
Although mainstream archaeologists speculate that the Karnak stones are most likely tomb markers, ancient astronaut theorists believe these stones are intentionally laid out in a unique geometric formation.
The Karnak stones were laid out incredibly precisely using standard units of measurement that show very sophisticated mathematics. It's been suggested that they were using the Pythagorean theorem thousands of years ago. It may elude us now exactly what they were trying to accomplish, but it seems like they were encoding some kind of information.
The Pythagorean theorem wasn't established until 2,000 years after the last Karnak stones were erected. So how could the builders have possessed this knowledge? And why were the stones arranged in such precise geometrical patterns?
The Karnak stones are a perfect marker for any kind of aerial vehicle looking down on the Earth.
The extraterrestrials told our ancestors, do this, move stones, put it exactly in this pattern, we order you. It was on purpose. The idea was that generations in the far future must start to ask questions. That's the situation we have today.
Landers, California, November 2019. Continuing his investigation of the Integratron, David Childress has arranged to meet with Bob Benson,
Hey, I'm David Childress.
a protege of Van Tassel's, and one of the only men alive known to have worked directly with him.
You knew George Van Tassel.
Sure did, John. I got some things I'd like to show you.
Oh, good. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, all right. So I was living here at his house.
At his house.
At his house.
Which was at the Integratron, wasn't
Right.
it? And what was he like then?
Very down to earth, but he was very intelligent. He was wonderful.
While Van Tassel never disclosed the full details for building his rejuvenation machine, Benson attempted to create a model of it based on what he learned.
He didn't leave takeover instructions for anybody, so nobody knew what to do. So I looked for the research and I couldn't find anything, so I had to go on my own. And what I did, I said, well, I'll start by building a model. It starts off very low like this. As it goes, it builds up to a part. It builds up, builds up, builds up, builds up, builds up, builds up, bang! And then this comes on. This is the spark gap. This is the regulator. See? Boom. Now it's regulated. And you walk through this little door right here. You walk around the back of it and out the other end there. And you rejuvenate instantly. This is a rejuvenation machine sent by extraterrestrials to help human beings.
So how close do you think that George Van Tassel was to completing the Integratron?
He says it was 95% done.
Doctor of Engineering Physics Tom Vallone is an expert in what is called bioelectromagnetic healing and has spent years studying both Nikola Tesla and George Van Tassel. Based on his research, he believes the Integratron was decades ahead of its time.
I would say that the genius of George Van Tassel is very evident in the design of the Integratron. He integrated a number of technologies that were slowly being evolved over the 20th century. The spark in the middle is the actual Tesla coil, And this is designed by Nikola Tesla to not only provide for the study of high voltage, but also biological benefits of being exposed to just Tesla coil frequencies. The design we have here is the best current knowledge that we have of finishing the Integratron design.
Considering what scientists now know about how electromagnetic frequencies and ions can benefit the human body, is it possible that George Van Tassel really was just weeks away from completing a working immortality machine? While Van Tassel was ahead of his time, he claimed to be tapping into knowledge from the ancient past.
He constantly referred to the Old Testament in regards to the references for angels and for God and the construction of the Integratron. But he was convinced from his extraterrestrial experiences that angels were space people.
And Van Tassel said that the instructions that he was given to build the Integratron were very similar to the instructions that Moses was given by the God Yahweh to build the tabernacle. So Van Tassel believed in ancient extraterrestrials and UFOs, and he saw all of these things as connected.
Van Tassel was particularly intrigued by the Great Pyramid of Giza, which he believed was built to utilize the piezoelectric properties of the quartz contained within its granite blocks. In the piezoelectric effect, electrical energy accumulates in rocks and otherwise lifeless matter.
We see even in George's writings that the pyramids were, to him, a powerhouse made of granite and therefore piezoelectric and very high energy accumulators. George was convinced that the pyramid structure was designed to rejuvenate people.
Van Tassel had computed that the site of the Integratron was also in line with the Great Pyramids, and that this area was a rare vortex where energies from beneath and above the Earth made it possible for us to be in contact with intelligences that we usually weren't able to easily reach.
Bolivia, South America. Here, 45 miles west of La Paz, isolated high in the Andes Mountains, lie the mysterious ancient ruins of Pumapunku. Spread across a desert plateau at an altitude over 12,000 feet, the megalithic stones found here are among the largest on the planet, measuring up to 26 feet long and weighing more than 100 tons each.
These are the mysterious ruins of Pumapunku, nearly 13,000 feet in the Altiplano of Bolivia. What you have here are massive blocks of granite scattered like some kids' toy blocks around the site. It's like some giant cataclysm just wiped out this entire area. Archaeologists are baffled by what Pumapunku was, how it looked, and what the purpose of this enormous structure would have been.
Mainstream scientists believe the site was originally constructed about 2,000 years ago. But in 1945, archaeologist Arthur Poznansky proposed that Pumapunku was much, much older. By examining the structures and what he believed were their original alignment with the stars, he dated the ruins to 15,000 BC.
Arthur Poznansky was a researcher, he was part Bolivian, and he had worked at the site for many decades. And he concluded that the site must have been built about 17,000 years ago by studying the archaeoastronomy of that particular site.
We don't know how old Pumapunku is. We have had some circumstantial dating, but we have been unable to date the stones of Puma Punku themselves. They could be thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years old. We don't know.
I think the fascinating thing about Puma Punku is how did these structures get built? We're talking about stone that is 25 feet high, stone that is hundreds of tons.
Puma Punku is so unique in the way that it was constructed and shaped and positioned that it is the most intriguing ancient site on the planet. Of all the places I've ever visited, Puma Punku is the one that I go back to time and again because no one can solve the mystery.
Mainstream scholars believe the andesite blocks found at Puma Punku were formed by hand with primitive stone tools. But some researchers point to the intricate stonework as evidence of the use of advanced precision technology.
One of the amazing things here at Puma Punku is the precision of the blocks. You can see with this block of granite that it's really been cut at very accurate right angles. Not only do these granite blocks have precision corners, but they also have these difficult drill holes that are going right through the rock.
But how could such primitive people, living perhaps tens of thousands of years ago, have produced such flawless stonework? Might the ancient builders of Puma Punku have fabricated the megalithic stones with advanced technology? Technology of an otherworldly origin, as ancient astronaut theorists believe.
If you look at the stones carefully and you get a magnifying glass on some of them, you can see some intricate stonework, as though they're using machine tools or even lasers. It's absolutely incredible. I've seen nothing like it anywhere on the planet.
When an architect or an engineer looks at Puma Punku, one thing jumps out immediately: that whoever built this place had knowledge of planning, of logistics, and had access to advanced technology.
You know, Brian, this is one of the most interesting and unusual stones here at Puma Punku. It's got these perfect right angles. And then each of these small drill holes are basically evenly spaced along this routed groove. To me, it's clear that power tools have been used on this unusual block of stone here.
Well, exactly, and this surface is as smooth as a tabletop, like in your kitchen. There's no wave to it or anything. This was machined. But who machined it? It's an astonishing piece of work, and how anyone could think that primitive human beings could have done this. You know, it's just crazy. If anything looks like ancient aliens, it's this stone.